There is a teaching Jesus gave that has been inside the canonical Gospels the entire time. Encoded language requiring specialized knowledge to decode. Hidden in the way the most important things always hide. In plain sight, inside the most familiar verses. Protected from genuine reception by the very fact of its familiarity. Absorbed it so completely into the background of assumed understanding that we stopped actually hearing it long ago. We process it the way the brain processes the hum of a refrigerator. Present, registered, immediately filed under known and moved past. The teaching is this: the kingdom of God is within you. 5 words in English. 5 words in English, a truth that echoes through the ages. In the Greek original of Luke's Gospel, 3, entos hymen estin, spoken not to the disciples in the intimacy of a private gathering, but to the Pharisees, the institutional representatives of the established religious order, who had asked when the kingdom of God would come. Jesus does not say soon. He does not say after the appropriate conditions are met. He does not point toward the temple or the Torah or the sacrificial system that the Pharisees administered. He says, you are looking in the wrong direction. The kingdom is not coming. It is not here or there. It is inside you, entos, within, already, now. The mainstream tradition has been managing this teaching for 2,000 years. The Greek word entos has been translated as among you, meaning among the group present, a social rather than interior location. It has been interpreted as meaning the kingdom comes invisibly rather than visibly. It has been read as a rebuke to the Pharisees' method of questioning rather than a genuine statement about where the kingdom is located. Every available interpretive move has been deployed to prevent the 5 words from doing what they appear to do: locate the divine reality inside the human consciousness. Plus, without qualification, without prerequisite, without the mediation of any institution, tradition, or ordained authority. The Gnostic tradition did not manage this teaching, it received it, and what it received, what the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, the Apocryphon of John, and every major Gnostic text all converge on from different directions, is a specific, operationally precise understanding of what it means for the kingdom to be inside you, what the sacred union that ignites the divine spark actually consists of, and why this teaching threatened every form of institutional religious authority that claimed to mediate access to the divine more than any other single statement Jesus made. Tonight we go into this teaching completely, not the familiar surface, the layer beneath it that the Gnostic tradition spent its entire existence trying to transmit. Udleaf to Tabostali translate Tabostali Thomas, the more the Thomas reachumnix of Lita Canakes. The Gnostic tradition's understanding of the kingdom within you begins with the concept of the pneumatic spark, the divine fragment embedded within the human soul at the moment of Adam's creation, when the Pleroma's intervention breathed Sophia's light into the demiurge's inert construction. The fragment of genuine Pleroma consciousness that the demiurge did not create, does not own, and cannot extinguish, the fragment that carries at its deepest level the quality of awareness that characterizes the monad itself, complete, not deficient, requiring nothing, already in possession of everything that genuine divine consciousness consists of. This is the kingdom within you, not a metaphor for interior spiritual life in the general sense, not a description of the subjective feeling of divine presence that meditation or prayer can produce, a specific designation for the pneumatic spark, the Pleroma's actual presence within the human soul, existing not as a potential to be developed, but as a reality that is already fully present and that requires not development, but recognition. The kingdom does not grow within you through spiritual practice, it is ignited within you through genuine gnosis, the direct, unmediated, irreversible recognition of what you actually are, at the level that precedes everything the demiurge's world has constructed around you. The sacred union that ignites this recognition is what the Gospel of Philip calls the bridal chamber, what the Gospel of Thomas calls finding the kingdom, what the Apocryphon of John calls the intervention of Sophia's light, what the Pistis Sophia calls the recognition that dissolves the archon powers. All of these different texts, with all of their different symbolic vocabularies, are pointing at the same event, the moment the divine spark within you recognizes itself, the moment the kingdom ignites. The Gospel of Thomas preserves the most concentrated cluster of sayings on the sacred union's nature anywhere in the Gnostic corpus. They must be read together, because each one illuminates a dimension that the others do not fully open alone. Saying 22. When you make the two into one, when you make the inner like the outer, and the outer like the inner, and the upper like the lower, and when you make male and female into a single one, so that the male will not be male nor the female be female, when you make eyes in place of an eye, a hand in place of a hand, a foot in place of a foot, an image in place of an image, then you will enter the kingdom. This saying has generated more misinterpretation than almost any other in the Gnostic corpus, because modern readers bring to it frameworks of interpretation about gender, about the body, about psychological integration, that the tradition did not operate within. The making of the two into one is not an instruction about androgyny or about the psychological integration of masculine and feminine personality traits. It is a description of the specific interior movement that constitutes genuine gnosis, the dissolution of the division between the pneumatic spark and the pleroma it came from, between the interior divine reality and the exterior material reality, between the awareness that is doing the perceiving and the reality it is perceiving. The two are not gender, the two are subject and object, the apparent separation between the soul and the divine that the Archon mechanisms maintain through the constant generation of distance, of seeking, of the experience of the divine as something you are reaching toward rather than something you already are. When you make the two into one, the kingdom is entered, not reached, not approached, not progressively approached through spiritual development. Entered. The threshold is the dissolution of the division, and the division is dissolved not through the accumulation of spiritual achievement, but through the recognition that the division was never fundamental, that it was an Archon construction, maintained through the mechanisms of desire and fear and identity, and that beneath those mechanisms, the union that the bridal chamber sacrament points toward was always already present. Saying 3 from the Gospel of Thomas contains the full paradox of the sacred union in its most compressed form. The kingdom is inside of you and it is outside of you. When you come to know yourselves, then you will become known, and you will realize that it is you who are the sons of the living Father. But if you will not know yourselves, you dwell in poverty, and it is you who are that poverty. The kingdom is inside of you, and it is outside of you. This is not a contradiction. It is the description of what the recognition of the pneumatic spark actually reveals, that the divine reality that the seeking soul has always located elsewhere, above, in the future, in the institution, in the spiritual peak experience, is the same reality that the seeking soul has always been located within. The kingdom is both inside and outside simultaneously because what the kingdom designates, the pleroma's fullness as it pervades both the interior of the human consciousness and the fabric of the material world, through the pneumatic sparks embedded within it, is not confined to either interior or exterior. It is the quality of reality that the Archon system has always been filtering from perception, by maintaining the soul in the state of seeking rather than finding. When you come to know yourselves, then you will become known. The self-knowledge the tradition is describing here is not psychological self-understanding. It is the pneumatic spark's recognition of itself, the consciousness recognizing its own nature as pleroma light, and the becoming known that follows is not social recognition. It is the pleroma's recognition of the pneumatic spark's return to self-awareness, the specific relational dynamic in which the monad's self-knowledge is completed through the soul's recognition of what it is. The poverty of not knowing yourself is not metaphorical poverty. It is the specific impoverishment of a consciousness that contains the kingdom, that is the kingdom, in the sense that the pneumatic spark within the human soul is the pleroma's actual presence within the demiurge's world, and has been so thoroughly managed by the Archon systems of external orientation that it has never turned inward to see what it is standing in. The practical instruction the tradition gives for the sacred union, the specific interior movement through which the kingdom is ignited rather than simply learned about, is preserved in the Gospel of Thomas with a precision that rewards sustained engagement. Saying 5, recognize what is in front of your face, and what is hidden from you will be revealed to you. For there is nothing hidden that will not be made manifest. Recognize what is in front of your face. The most literal reading, what is immediately in front of your face in the most direct sense is your own awareness, the consciousness that is doing the seeing, the knowing that is reading these words right now. You cannot see what is in front of your face in the way you see objects at a distance, because what is in front of your face is not an object, it is the subject. The awareness that is the source of every act of perception, always already present, impossible to turn toward in the way you turn toward something else, because it is what the turning is. And yet the saying says recognize it. The recognition of the awareness that cannot be objectified, the consciousness noticing its own nature, rather than only the objects of its attention, it's what the hidden made manifest consists of, not new information. The recognition of what was always doing the recognizing. I have created a free guide to accompany this teaching. It is called The Kingdom Within, a Gnostic practice guide to igniting the divine spark. Inside you will find the specific practices drawn from the Gospel of Thomas and the Valentinian tradition for cultivating the quality of interior recognition that the sacred union produces, from the first glimpses available in ordinary contemplative practice through the deeper stabilizations that sustained engagement over months makes possible. The link is in the description below. Jesus' teaching on prayer in the Sermon on the Mount carries within it the most accessible description of the sacred union's practical application that the canonical tradition preserves. Matthew 6:6. When you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. The Gnostic reading inverts the spatial metaphor without inverting the instruction. Go into your room, enter the interior, shut the door, close out the archon demand structures, the noise of desire and fear and identity that prevents the interior recognition from operating. Pray to your Father who is in secret. Direct attention toward the pleroma reality that is present within you but secret from the archon management system that has always tried to convince you the divine is elsewhere. This is the sacred union as daily practice, not a grand mystical achievement available only to the spiritually exceptional, the ordinary, reproducible, available in this moment interior movement of turning attention from the archon mechanisms that normally consume it toward the pneumatic spark that the archon mechanisms have always been designed to prevent from being noticed. Every moment of genuine interior stillness, every moment in which the seeking mind is temporarily quiet and the awareness that was always doing the seeking is simply present with itself, is the sacred union in its most immediate and most accessible form. The kingdom is igniting, not dramatically, in the specific quality of the ordinary moment that is genuinely inhabited rather than processed through the archon filter of desire and fear and narrative. The suppression of this teaching, the sustained institutional effort to prevent the 5 words from doing what they appear to do, is the most important story in the history of Western spirituality, because what was being suppressed was not a doctrinal position that could be debated and theologically contained. What was being suppressed was the experiential recognition that the divine is not elsewhere, that the kingdom is not coming, that the union that ignites the spark requires no mediator, no institution, no sacramental administration, that you are right now in possession of the one thing the institution has always claimed exclusive jurisdiction over the supply of, the 5 words, entos hymen estin. Inside you it is. Receive them, not as information, as recognition. Let the kingdom ignite. Subscribe to the Gnostic Archive, where we return to this recognition every week, from every angle the tradition offers, until it is not a teaching you are learning, but a reality you are living. The Valentinian tradition adds a cosmological precision to the sacred union that no other Gnostic school matches. Valentinus described the human being as a composite of 3 elements, the hyliconic, the psychic, and the pneumatic. The hyliconic is the material body, entirely the demiurge's domain. The psychic is the soul layer, genuine, real, capable of spiritual experience, but operating within the range of consciousness the archon system manages. And the pneumatic is the divine spark itself, the pleroma's light within the demiurge's world, genuine pleroma consciousness in its most embedded and most protected form. The sacred union that ignites the divine spark is not an event that happens in the hyliconic or psychic layers. It is the pneumatic recognizing itself, the pleroma light within the human consciousness, finally, clearly, irreversibly recognizing that it is pleroma light. The union is the recognition, and the recognition changes the relationship between all 3 layers permanently. The hyliconic, the body and its drives, is no longer experienced as what the soul is, but as what the soul is temporarily navigating within. The psychic, the spiritual experiences, the genuine feelings of divine presence, the authentic moments of expanded awareness, is no longer experienced as the destination of the spiritual path, but as the path's territory rather than its endpoint. And the pneumatic, the divine spark, is no longer the sought but the seeker that has finally turned around and recognized itself as what it was always seeking. This is what the Gospel of Philip means when it says those who say they will die first and then rise are in error. If they do not first receive the resurrection while they live, when they die they will receive nothing. The resurrection is the ignition of the divine spark, the specific moment of pneumatic self-recognition that constitutes genuine gnosis, and it must occur within embodied life, within the conditions of the psychic and hyliconic existence that the demiurge's world provides, because those conditions are the specific arena in which the recognition has the contrast it needs to become irreversible. The pneumatic spark recognizes itself most clearly in the context of what it is not, of the desire and fear and identity that the archon mechanisms generate in the layers that surround it. Without that contrast, the recognition would have nothing to distinguish itself from. The material world is not simply a prison. It is the specific context in which the divine spark's self-recognition becomes possible in the form that genuinely constitutes liberation. The practical instruction is simple in the stating and demanding in the doing. In the ordinary moments of your ordinary day, in the moments when desire arises and pulls at your attention, when fear contracts your awareness, when the narrative of who you are asserts itself against the challenge of what is actually happening, pause, not dramatically, interiorly. And in that interior pause, notice the awareness that is present before the desire, the fear, the narrative begins to move. Not the content of the experience. The awareness that the content is arising within. That awareness is not the desire, it is not the fear, it is not the narrative, it is what all of those are arising within. And what they are arising within is the pneumatic spark, the divine consciousness that the demiurge did not create and cannot own, recognizing itself for a moment through the interior pause that you have created for it. That is the sacred union, not a peak experience reserved for the spiritually advanced. The ordinary, available, reproducible interior movement of the pneumatic spark recognizing what it is, even briefly, even imperfectly, even in the middle of the most ordinary moment the demiurge's world has arranged around you. Practice it 10,000 times in the ordinary moments of ordinary life, and arrive at the threshold of death, with 10,000 instances of the recognition that the archon of the threshold cannot override. The kingdom was always within you. The sacred union ignites it. Begin now, in this moment, with the interior pause that costs nothing and recovers everything. Subscribe to the Gnostic Archive, where we return to this practice every week until it becomes not an instruction you are following, but a reality you are living. The Gospel of Truth encodes the sacred union's mechanics in an image that no other Gnostic text quite matches for its combination of simplicity and cosmological depth. It describes the souls within the material world as existing in a state of nightmare, not simple unconsciousness, but the specific torture of seeking in sleep what can only be found awake. The soul in the nightmare runs toward destinations that keep receding. It finds what it was looking for and discovers that finding did not end the searching. It wakes within the dream to what appears to be insight and finds itself still dreaming. The counterfeit light, the beautiful psychic experience that the Archon system produces to satisfy the soul's reaching without actually giving it what the reaching was for, is the most vivid, most convincing, most exquisitely crafted dream within the dream. And the sacred union that ignites the divine spark is not another dream. It is the recognition that you were dreaming. That recognition does not produce a new experience. It produces the cessation of the seeking structure that all the experiences were serving. The soul that has made the recognition does not experience more spiritual states. It experiences the same states it always experienced, but from the position of the awareness that contains them, rather than from within the states themselves. The desire still arises. The fear still activates, the narrative still asserts itself, but none of these are confused anymore with what the soul actually is. They are recognized as what they always were, arising within the awareness, belonging to the layers of the composite being that the demiurge's construction produced, and not extending to the pneumatic spark whose nature is prior to every arising and every dissolution. The union of the soul with the divine that the bridal chamber sacrament symbolizes is this: the union of the awareness with the recognition of its own nature, the ending of the apparent distance between the seeker and what it was seeking, not the acquisition of a new spiritual state, the recognition that the state of pure awareness was always already what the soul was. That is the kingdom igniting. Subscribe to the Gnostic Archive. The dream is ending. The recognition is available. The Allergenes, a Sethian text of extraordinary philosophical sophistication, preserved at Nag Hammadi, gives the sacred union its most precise single-sentence description in all of Gnostic literature. At the moment of the practitioner's closest approach to the Mundat, A divine voice instructs, do not know it, be known by it. This reversal from active seeking to receptive recognition, from the practitioner approaching the divine to the divine recognizing itself in the practitioner, is the precise description of what the Gnostic tradition calls the stillness, the point at which the seeker has sought as far as seeking can take them and has recognized that the next movement is not more seeking, but the complete, unconditional rest of the seeking faculty. In that rest, in the Allegenes' stillness, the divine spark within the soul is simply what remains. Not a new experience of the monad, but the cessation of the apparent distance between the seeker and the monad. The recognition that the distance was never a spatial fact, but a consequence of the movement of seeking itself. The sacred union is not something you achieve. It is what remains when achieving stops. The kingdom was within you all along. Stop seeking it elsewhere, and you will find it exactly where Jesus said it was. This is the teaching they suppressed. This is what has been waiting for you in the gap between familiarity and genuine reception. Receive it now. The sacred union has a final, unavoidable implication that every practitioner of the tradition eventually confronts. It cannot be communicated to a consciousness that has not already begun to touch it. The 5 words entos hymen estian communicate perfectly to the consciousness that has already turned inward far enough to feel the direction they are pointing. They communicate nothing that changes anything to the consciousness that receives them as propositions about where the kingdom is located. This is not elitism. It is the specific structure of a transmission that operates below the level of conceptual communication, that works not through the conveyance of information, but through the resonance between the transmission and the quality of the receiving consciousness. The Gospel of Thomas's opening says it precisely. Whoever finds the interpretation of these words will not taste death. Not whoever understands the words. Not whoever correctly identifies their theological significance. Whoever finds the interpretation, whoever develops, through genuine interior practice, the quality of consciousness in which the words stop being descriptions and become recognitions. That quality is what you are building through every genuine moment of interior attention you bring to this tradition's teaching. Build it consistently. The kingdom was always within you. The sacred union is igniting. Stay with the practice. It is the most important thing you are doing.